Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, The Maple Leaf. Yet again, we are here to discuss something very important, very interesting. Perhaps before we go into that, I would like to thank every single one of you who tuned into our previous episodes and showed a lot of love and engagement on it. We love your feedback, and we are here to bring a lot more about immigration, Canada immigration, especially because in this space, there's a lot of improvements on a daily basis. Canada, like you know, is a beautiful country, and as a country, they need a lot of immigrants. And for that, what they've been doing is they've been amending all their laws, policies, and they've been bringing in a lot of reforms to ensure that it is in the best interest of the immigrants. So today we are here yet again to discuss yet another topic on the space of immigration. That is something which is very dear to us and which we are all concerned about all the time, and that's about family. A lot of immigrants they move to Canada individually, alone, and then they happen to want to sponsor their families. How does that happen? What are the things that you need to be aware of? How to do it in a very efficient and successful manner? That's what we're going to discuss today. So we have with us Ronen Kurzfeld, a lawyer, an licensed immigration lawyer with over 20 years of experience, 10,000 success stories. So he's here to enlighten us and talk to us a little bit more about this subject. Ronen, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm doing great. I know we had a break, but I missed it and I missed you. Ready to go.
How have your days been in terms of immigration? Like, are you like overwhelmed with
Yeah,
the number of
so
immigrants?
from a professional basis, we're extremely busy. I think that's a common theme with many immigration lawyers and consultants. Canada pretty much opened the doors, while from what we understand and we know experts with other country systems, other countries are closing down. We heard that in Britain, in UK, they do not allow spouses of students to work. In US, there's a report that there are more refusals on their labor certification, which is the LMIAs or equivalent to the LMIAs. In Canada, we're very busy. The government is very aggressive with its programs. And as I always said, just you don't have to be a demographic expert to understand that in order for Canada to survive, we must have immigration. So I'm glad to say we're very busy servicing our clients. I really miss those podcasts because that's the way to also, more general basis to educate the public.
For sure, for sure. Canada cannot survive without immigrants. That's something that you've stated, and I think that is something that we all agree on. And it's unanimously understood and accepted because of the nature of how the Canadian landscape works, with a lot of natural resources and very poor human resources coming into Canada to kind of sustain that setup. So that's appreciated, and so we would like to discuss this topic about family, Ronin, because family is something which is very dear to us and which is something that is very concerning for a lot of us as to how we want to take our families into Canada later on after we've settled maybe a little bit. Can you, to bring in some context to discussion, share with us what is family sponsorship in the context of Canada immigration and how does it work?
Okay, so family sponsorship is something that is very dear to my heart because I sponsored my own wife 21 years ago and 4 kids ago. And obviously, that's the way to come to Canada. But when people use the term family sponsorship very generally and very loosely, so we have several programs and you have to, I guess, separate the family. So under the family class, we have sponsoring spouses, whether it's marriage or common law, sponsoring parents, which is a whole different system. Right now it's closed, it's based on a lottery system. There are other ways to bring parents, but we can leave that for another episode. And then you have sponsoring, some people call us, can I sponsor my brother? Can I sponsor my sister, my cousin? Generally no, but we have something that is not used a lot and we're very happy to use it. It's called the last remaining relative. So some people can, if they're not married, if they don't have children in Canada, if the parents are deceased, yes, they can sponsor a last remaining relative. So I think on this that the popular program for sponsorship, and of course you have sponsorship of children as well, right? And then for adoption. So it's a very broad field, but I think on this episode we should focus on the popular one, which is spousal sponsorship. Somebody's getting married or got married, their spouse may be abroad, they may be in Canada, they may have status, they may have no status, and the popular program is spousal sponsorship. There are tens of thousands of applications that IRCC processes every year.
Wow, that's interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about what are the eligibility requirements for sponsoring a family member to come to Canada? That's something that everyone's concerned about, and everyone wants to know at the outset. What is the eligibility requirement?
So, in terms of spousal sponsorship, which is going to be the focus today, first of all, it must be a genuine relationship, right? So, whether somebody is married, has to be not for papers, has to be for the right reasons. If somebody cohabiting for 12 months, so that means living together prior to filing the application. And then there are very specific situations on conjugal partners. If somebody, for whatever reason, they cannot get married or they cannot live together, then in some instances we can file a conjugal sponsorship application. So that's the general. Now, specifically, the sponsor has to meet certain eligibility requirements, such as not being bankrupt. If they sponsored before or were sponsored, there may be a bar of several years, so it's really case by case basis. Of course, there's some convictions that can also bar somebody from sponsoring. In terms of the applicant, you still have to meet certain requirements such as security and criminal. For spousal, there are exemption from the medical, so you still have to undergo the medical examination, but there is some exemption from the medical inadmissibility. Again, we always say for sponsorship, the key to be in a genuine and bona fide relationship.
Right, brilliant. Now, those conditions, like though it looks a little complex, I feel that it makes a lot of sense because it's done or seen to in the best interest of the immigrant themselves. Because later on, when they migrate to Canada, there should be some sense of security, and there should be some sense of a way forward for them to live in a sustainable manner. I've seen a lot of people who, especially migrated from where I come from, they've migrated to Canada, they've lived there for a bit, and then because it's unsustainable, they move back because life there is totally different to what they come from, right? So those checks, those eligibility criteria set in place in Canada, I feel they're totally justifiable and should be looked into very seriously before, like, I mean, someone intends to move. I feel. Ronan, to take this forward, can you explain the difference between, there's two categories I've seen on on the internet about when it comes to sponsoring a family or a spouse. What is the difference between spousal sponsorship and common law sponsorship categories?
Right. So spousal, so let's start with what's common. So what's common for the two of them? The relationship has to be genuine and bona fide. It has to be for the purpose of hopefully living together until the end of time, but not for the purpose of paper. So it has to be a real relationship, and the couple needs to have intention to remain together, even when the sponsorship is complete and approved and the applicant lands in Canada. That's what's common for both. The other difference, or the main difference, is for spousal. All you need is a legal marriage certificate. So the marriage has to be legal in the jurisdiction that it took place. For common law, the couple has to live together for at least 12 months as a couple, not as roommates or friends, prior to filing the application. So the couple has the application needs to prove not just that it's a genuine relationship, but also that there's the cohabitation.
Right, brilliant. Now, Ronan, talking about, okay, as easy as it sounds to kind of apply for a spousal sponsorship, there's definitely challenges on the other side as well, which people need to take into consideration. Can you share with us what are the main challenges or obstacles that individuals face, especially when sponsoring their spouses to Canada?
So again, when we take those cases and we handling many cases of sponsorship, to be honest, it's our part of our bread and butter. We do significant number of those. We always say the focus has to be very narrow, and that's the relationship. I always say the second you try to get into the head of an immigration officer, you'll never get out of it. So everything else is background noise. That's what you have to focus on. And today is the year 2023, and trust me, I'm no expert on relationships, but I can tell you each relationship is different. And what was in the past that people had kind of a vision of what a relationship should be or look like, it's totally different. We have successful cases with age gaps. Okay, we have successful cases with people who just met 2 months ago or one a month ago, and they did a fast marriage because they were head over heels, and that's fine. That's genuine, right? So, and then we have other relationships that I said this is not traditional. This is not what maybe in the past we've been accustomed for, but that's the key. Every relationship is unique. Every relationship is different. As long as it's genuine, we say go with it. Like I always say, so we have clients who come and say, well, we don't have this and that because, and they have a good reason. And what will the officer think? And I always say, don't go inside the head of an officer. You'll never get out of it. Live your life as if you live your life. As long as it's a genuine relationship, everything else will take care of itself.
Perfect, perfect, Ronan. Now, can you? I'm just curious. You said you are dealing with a lot of family sponsorship cases. Can you share with me one of the most complex cases that you've ever dealt? I mean, of course, maintaining confidentiality of what you've seen. Can you share with us a little bit of a detail about how complex like family sponsorships can get a little bit?
So I think, complexion can go in two aspects, right? So one, if somebody has admissibility issues, so we have to deal with that on top of the relationship. Whether we have a strategy, if it's outside, get refused and file an appeal, or maybe ask for TRP, or maybe HSC grant. So every relationship, as I said, is different, but admissibility issues, that's one aspect of complex case. The other one, some relationships, as I said, we respect every relationship, but we had clients that had multiple marriages before and multiple applications before. And we even had somebody that, had claimed sexual orientation, the sponsor on a refugee claim, but now, sponsoring someone on the other side. So as long as it's genuine, I always say, when it's true, we can explain. I always say, you cannot take a frog, paint it as a fox, and call it a fox, right? It's still going to be a frog. But when something is genuine and real, I don't think anybody has an option. They have to go with it. But
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can really write a book about today's relationship and complexities. But that's why I
yeah.
said, like, we don't deal with them as a cookie cutter, and nobody should. Like, every case is unique and different. And we had something, clients go, yeah, but just to complete the form, they're all the same. No, they're not all the same, right? I'm not even talking about being accurate and complete so they don't send back an application. But the facts of the case really determine how the application is going to go.
Perfect, perfect. And I think it makes total sense because I've seen like in a couple of forums around Canada immigration on Facebook and other platforms. I've seen people who kind of get married just for the sake of immigration as well. There is total ingenuity. So there are things happen like that, and it's I think it's right of the IRCC to kind of assess whether the relationship is genuine and see what metrics they meet in order to meet that
And
criteria.
and you're right. And we had cases that we turned away here, right? It's it has to be genuine. And again, we're not expert about relationship, but when it's clear that it's not genuine for the purpose of immigration, I tell the clients very politely, listen, it's forget the ethical. That for sure we're not going to take it, and nobody should do it. But I always say the officers, they're very experienced. And sometimes I'm not naive. I'm sure some people can pull a fast one on them. But when they think that you misrepresented, especially for something like that, it's Canada can be history, right? Like the applicant can, in most cases, forget about Canada. So we always say, you don't fool others, you fool yourself, right? And as I said, we're not naive. I'm sure people do it, and that goes on. But keep it clean. Yes, there's some very complex cases, but that's the way to resolve them. And we always say, again, I know I stressed it and emphasized it many times today, the relationship is the key.
I want to discuss one more thing before we conclude, Ronan. That's about children. See, most of these people who want to sponsor their families, obviously they have children. It's not just couples who want to move to Canada, right? What are special considerations or requirements that people need to be considerate or think about when it comes to sponsoring dependent children to Canada?
Dependent children, again, you start with the general rule that they have to be under 22. Usually, the issues with dependent children is if somebody was sponsored before or applied before and didn't include or didn't declare the children. That's when the issues begin, if the children were not examined. So those are also very unique cases. And of course, best interest of children is paramount. And I have 4 children myself, is paramount to everything else. And they have to be taken very carefully. So some cases are very clear. It's easy. You sponsor a child from overseas. Maybe you declared before, they were examined, and it's pretty straightforward. But others can become way more complex. But remember, with children, the key is the dependent age. Right now, it's under 22. That's also another key to mention.
Before we conclude, I would like to also ask you: is there any advice for someone who's just about to, sponsor their spouses? I'm sure there'll be many people who'll be watching this, who may be like considering at some point of time in the close times to come to sponsor their, what do you call, children or spouses. Is there any final closing remarks that you would like to give them before we conclude?
So again, we always say this application, it's still a full immigration application. So you should treat it very carefully. You have to answer everything accurately. Don't make assumption. And I always say, remember, the officer does not see a human being. They see a pile of paper. So the paper has to speak. The paper has to speak about your relationship. In some cases, the strategy is to go very detailed. In other cases, maybe the strategy is to be less detailed, right? So as I said, every case is unique, but we always tell clients this application is no different than application for permanent resident under express entry, or maybe a work permit with LMIA, or maybe intercompany transfer or refugee claim. It has to be taken very seriously. Many people think, oh, I'm married, so it's a rubber stamp. It's not a rubber stamp. Okay, the officer has discretion. They make decision, and guess what? They refuse application. That's why we have the IED, which is the Immigration Appeal Division, and they're pretty busy with appeals of refused decisions. So we always tell clients, don't think you read on some internet forum that you married and the rest just takes care of itself. Yes, it's a very good program, and I think it's a program that Canada did really well because the processing time takes about 6 to 12 months on average. And even some cases we get decision. It's not because we're special or anything like that, but we get decisions in 2 to 3 months. So I understand other countries like US, it can take years, and I'm not sure about the UK or Australian system, but Canada it has a very good sponsorship program. It's very popular. I understand Canada process around 80,000 applications for sponsorship on an annual basis. So many Canadians, it's a small world now, it's a global village. Many Canadians travel, many have relatives abroad. So many Canadians or permanent residents do marry spouses, or they have common law partners from different countries, right? So it's a very popular program, but it's no rubber stamp. Like, it's a good program, but you have to play by the rules and prepare your application properly.
That's exactly why, Ronin, we always suggest from our firm that they should consult an immigration lawyer to kind of pursue an immigration application, any immigration application, maybe especially for spousal sponsorships, because you kind of need to prove a lot of things to kind of get this going forward. And lawyers are the ones who know a lot about how to get this done. They have the experience, they know what mistakes to avoid and how to take things forward. So in our team, I would like to, for the benefit of those viewers who are watching, they should know that we have a team of lawyers with us who are credible enough to process their files and work on their files. So if anyone wants any support with regards to immigration and or maybe around their spousal sponsorship, they should know who to contact. They should contact Kurzfeld Law, Immigration Law Office of Ronan Kurzfeld. We will be helping you around with your immigration application with 100% professionalism and transparency of how we're going to go about things. So, Ronan, with that, I think we can conclude the episode. If you don't have any closing remarks, do you have anything last to say?
Just to add to what you said, remember, there's also a term, a legal term, that means res judicata, meaning you cannot file sometimes application twice. So sometimes we get clients that had their application refused, they did an appeal, now they want to file another sponsorship. So unless there are new circumstances, they will not accept it. So we always say, take the sponsorship very seriously. You're going to bring your partner, your spouse. This is not just okay, my cousin wants to visit. If it doesn't work out, it's sad, but fine, life goes on. If your spouse cannot enter Canada, the ramifications and the consequences are quite serious.
Yeah.
So I wish everybody good luck with your applications. And as you mentioned, we'll be more than happy to assist anybody who needs it.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Nice talking to you. Thank you, listeners, for
Yeah,
listening to us, watching us, and enjoying this episode. Keep following us and our content on the in the times to come. Connect with us on all our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and wherever we are. We are on all platforms. We're a full force immigration, firm ready to help you. So please do reach out to us if you need any help with immigration. Thank you very much. Until we talk to you guys next time.
thank,
Please,
thank
bye.
you. Bye bye.